Raising Us is sponsored by Nugget, makers of the original Play Couch.
Narrate how you're feeling. I am so nervous about this conversation. My heart is beating. My hands are sweaty. I do not want to talk to you about this. I'm feeling really awkward, but here goes. It's that important to me.
Parenting doesn't come with a script, but it does come with lots of questions. I'm Elise Hume, journalist, mom, and your host for Raising Us, a podcast from A Kids Co. Every week, we break down big, timely topics so you can have honest, meaningful conversations with your kids. Because these conversations, they matter. And every time we show up for them, we're not just raising thoughtful kids, we're raising us, too. In this episode, we are diving into a transition that sparks questions and emotions for kids and grown-ups alike. Puberty. From sudden growth spurts and mood swings to acne and other bodily changes, this transition can feel confusing or overwhelming. Puberty is huge and sometimes scary, but it's also a natural and important part of growing up. You might hear a lot of myths and awkward silence around puberty, but what if we approached it with openness and curiosity? What if we gave our kids the language and confidence to understand their bodies and emotions with less shame? On today's episode of Raising Us, we're talking all things puberty with Dr. Cara Natterson, a pediatrician, entrepreneur, and the New York Times bestselling author of parenting and adolescent health books, including the Care and Keeping of You series. Here's our conversation with Dr. Natterson, exploring how parents and caregivers can support kids through the transition. We get into lots of things, from answering tough questions to building emotional resilience. Well, a huge coming of age, or part of growing up, is puberty. Yeah. Obviously, we all have to go through it. What kind of emotions come up for parents and kids when this transition begins?
Yeah. I mean, when people say the word puberty, there's like a little bile in the back of their throat, right? They can just, it's cringy, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward. Those memories, those very traumatic memories really sear in the brain. It does not have to be. And in fact, puberty, when we were going through it, was a bit more of a sprint. It usually lasted 3, 4, maybe 5 years. Now it is a marathon. It lasts almost twice as long. Kids are in it starting at much younger ages. Wow. They go through it much more slowly. And so for as many awkward and uncomfortable experiences as there are, and they're all related to the rising and falling sex hormones, which we can talk about. Yeah. But there are also incredibly joyful experiences and things kids really look forward to. Some kids don't want their bodies to change. Some kids are so psyched their bodies are changing, or their friendships, or their interests. Yeah. And all of these things are tethered together.
As you talk about how this is not just a sprint, it's a marathon, it kind of reminds me, it has echoes now in the conversation around perimenopause, a different kind of changes in our lives, in which marathon. It's also kind of a longer period than previously understood. Yeah. In understanding puberty as a longer period now, should we be talking with our kids about it earlier?
Yes.
Okay. Say more about that.
Like 100% yes. So I think in the world of body talk and brain talk and social development talk, when I was growing up, it was the talk. Exactly one. And I'll tell you, when I first started in practice, I used to do this thing where I would say to the kids, when I would have one-on-one time with them in the office, I would say, so have your parents had the talk with you? And they'd say, no. And then they'd be getting dressed or whatever, and I'd go and I'd meet with the parents in my office, and I'd say, so have you had the talk with your kid? And not only would they say yes, they would tell me where, they would tell me when, they would tell me exactly what they said. And it was all proof positive to the fact that one talk lands exactly 0 with a kid, right? You have to do this hundreds and hundreds of times in order for it to resonate. So it is something that we not only encourage you start sooner, but we encourage you grab these teachable moments all the time. You can start on the changing table with a baby, right? Just naming body parts. You can start at the dinner table talking about what does a healthy meal look like? Or what does a healthy plate look like? You can talk about friendships and connections with people and consent that has nothing to do with sex when kids are really, really young. So it's never too early. I will say for those who have not started any of these conversations, it's also never too late.
Before we get into actually kids and parents and their various responses, what have you seen about the way that how we talk about puberty at home affects kids who grow up to be adults in the long run?
Right. So there's a lot of data about the importance of communication. And I'll give you one important statistic to hold on to because this usually changes the way parents approach it. So kids who know their anatomical body parts are far less likely to be victims of sexual abuse and assault.
Why is that?
Because an abuser will start engaging them, will start grooming them, will realize this kid knows their body parts. And what does that signal to the adult who is grooming them? That this kid has adults who talk to them and they can then go to those safe adults and report. That is a waste of their time. That data is really, really important. And it tells you kind of everything you need to know about what conversation does for kids as they get older and older.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is. Yeah.
When you reflect on the way our culture talks about puberty and all the changes that come with it that we've discussed, what kinds of messages do you notice that kids are getting?
I mean, it's totally gendered and it's completely unfair in both directions. So girls' puberty sucks, right? It's awful. You're going to get your period. You're going to be moody. Your skin curves, right? It's all about the pain and the shame and the embarrassment. Boy puberty is a joke. It's all about wet dreams and erections, and it's a joke. And the truth is, girls deserve to laugh about their puberty because it's ridiculous at times. And boys, they deserve serious conversation about their puberty. They have real questions. They wonder about what's happening to their body. When I used to teach in schools, I taught health and sex ed for a long time in schools. And people used to say, well, what are you going to teach the boys? There's nothing to teach them, as if they like magically spring up out of the earth and they're suddenly men. No, they go through puberty. It's a very long process and they have lots of questions.
How do we create an environment, especially for the boys who are socialized, to not talk about these things as openly? Right. How do we create an environment as parents so that they can feel comfortable coming to us with questions?
It's really hard. So testosterone is the male sex hormone, which drives male puberty. Estrogen and progesterone are the female sex hormones that drive female puberty. Everyone has a little of both. Testosterone is associated with rage and anger. That's been borne out in lots of studies. The study that's never been done that I'm dying to see, and I know it's true, is that testosterone is also associated with silence. So how do you diagnose the earliest stages of puberty? In a girl, she becomes moody, right? She becomes outwardly moody. She laughs hysterically.
And quite angry.
Angry, like it's all right, a big pendulum swing of emotions. Right. How do you diagnose it in boys? It's a similar pendulum swing, just in different directions. He gets quiet. His sentences get shorter. He shuts the door. He shuts you out, right? Does this happen to every boy? No. Does that happen to every girl? No. But can you paint broad strokes? You bet. So now you're asking a question which is really hard to answer because you're framing the social piece correctly. And now I'm layering on top of that there's a hormonal piece that makes it really hard to put it into action. So what did I do with my son, who shut the door and was basically in his room for 4 years? I mean, I'm exaggerating.
Which is developmentally appropriate,
normal,
according to what you're saying.
Yes, and I'm exaggerating because he would hang out with his friends and he would have all these social relationships. When it came to us as his trusted adults, the door was shut and we were pretty much shut out. So what would I do? I would sit on the other side of the door and I would say, hey, dude, I'm on the other side of the door. And I'm really interested in hearing about your day. So I'm just going to hang out here for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I might ask you a question or two, but I'd love for you to just chat. And it took a very long time. And eventually, over time, the door sort of creaked open a little.
Wow.
And then we got to a stage, and he actually came onto my podcast and told this story. We got to a stage where I could go into his room and I could lay on his bed. He'd be sitting in his desk chair. His back would be to me. And I'd say, so how you doing? And he would start to talk because eye contact is the death knell of any conversation, right? So he would just look away. I would be staring at the ceiling. And that is how we had our deepest conversations. And he still to this day will say to me, hey, come in and just like go lay on my bed and I want to chat.
So what I'm hearing is you were really consistent. You were kind of just there.
I was really annoying. And that is what you have. Yes, consistency, persistence. Kids will shut us out and shut us out and shut us out, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
When they turn 12, there's actually a shift in their brain chemistry where they are more responsive, literally more responsive to the voices of their peers than the voices of their parents. It is neurochemical.
Wow.
It is real. Okay? Doesn't mean they don't want us there. It means they don't hear us as loudly. And so it is our job to be waving our arms and saying to them, I am still here. And by the way, I'm a valid information source.
Mm-hmm.
I am better than what you're going to find on TikTok or on YouTube or online. I am going to give you answers. And if I don't have them, I'm going to find the right person who will. That is what that consistency does for your kid.
I love that. But of course, the flip side of that is us. Right?
Oh, yes.
And how we might feel awkward or we might feel cringy when it comes to talking about our parts and what happens during puberty and sex.
That's right.
And so what advice do you have for folks who are even listening to this conversation and feeling like, ugh?
I mean this in the gentlest way possible. Get over it. So how do you do that? You start talking to your trusted adults. We say to kids, you all need trusted adults. We need trusted adults. Start talking to your community. Read the books they're reading. There are lots of wonderful books written for kids.
Oh, yeah. I've learned some things when I flip through them myself. I'm like, oh.
That's right, because no one ever taught this to you. Those books were not around when you were growing up. So you get on that same educational learning curve that they're on, and then you can leapfrog having to learn it together, and you can just jump into conversation. Here's one other tip that works really well. Narrate how you're feeling.
Okay.
I am so nervous about this conversation. My heart is beating. My hands are sweaty. I do not want to talk to you about this. I'm feeling really awkward, but here goes. It's that important to me. And sometimes it's a conversation where you're asking their opinion. And sometimes you just need to dump information in their lap. And it's not a conversation. It's, I'm setting a timer for 60 seconds and here we go. And you just dump it and say, that's all I had to say. I am here if you have any follow-up questions. And that strategy works really well.
You've kind of already answered this, but let's just get really actionable.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for parents who want to talk to their kids and make them feel really supported and that this is kind of just a healthy conversation? I know it's not one, it's a series of conversations. But when you give advice about talking to your kids about puberty and sex, and when kids themselves are sort of like, ugh, my parents are really bad at this. What advice do you have about just making this whole ecosystem a lot healthier and supportive and less awkward?
I mean, one way is to laugh at yourself. I'm really bad at this. Okay, I'm going to try this 25 different ways. I know I'm going to really mess it up. And I am fine with you mocking me endlessly about all the ways in which I messed it up, because that is how much I care about having this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really hard. Some of these subjects are lighter and easier. You know, questions about growth spurts, which are, by the way, a really big deal to kids. But that's a little easier conversation than the conversation about porn, for instance. And so how are you going to navigate those? And what's your own comfort level? And how much do you know about each of those topics? You might need help figuring out how to tiptoe into them. But laughing at yourself and saying, not only did I not have a cell phone when I was growing up,
Mhm.
but there was no such thing as Pornhub when I was growing up. So I'm going to try this conversation, but we might have to have it a few times in order for it to land.
Yeah.
Kids appreciate that.
Okay, what are some best practices for parents who are going into these conversations, and best practices for handling the potential emotional intensity of all of this?
So here's a fun fact. Tweens and teens feel emotions more intensely than they did when they were younger and than they will when they're older.
Oh, don't I know it?
Yes,
I
you
can't
do.
even tell you about the chaos that ensued when we couldn't find the right shirt this
And
morning.
those feelings are real. They are real. They are not. And here's why. Because the limbic system, which is the emotional part of the brain, which sits in the middle of the brain, that part of the brain is sending and receiving signals faster than any other part of the brain during the tween, teen, and early 20-something years.
Yeah.
So that translates into a full meltdown, and it is, I am not being dramatic, Mom. This matters.
Right. No, it felt like a
Right?
hurricane.
It
right,
is.
over a T-shirt.
Correct. And the surges of sex hormones, whether it's testosterone or estrogen or progesterone, those sex hormones change the way neurons in the brain fire, changes the way that we feel emotion.
Mm.
So, I mean, all of us have experienced hormonal mood swings relatively recently. We have hormones that
Sure.
shift and change. Our kids have rises and falls that shift every 6, 8, 10 hours. These shifts are big and it feels bad. Okay, so that's
How do we
the setup.
ride that, though?
Okay,
Right.
right. So that's the setup. So the first thing you can do is teach your kids the science. They feel like bad kids when they're out of control emotionally. They feel ashamed. They know that their behavior is a little bit out of control. And if you ask them 2 or 3 hours later, like, oh, how'd that feel? The answer is, that felt horrible. I hated that, right?
Yeah.
So the very first thing to do, not in the heat of the moment over the t-shirt, but when things have calmed down, is to teach them the science. And there are so many great resources out there that have really great explainers about how the brain works, how the brain is wired, all that kind of stuff. So they love that. The second thing is come up with strategies that are not patronizing, because if they're patronizing, they'll send a kid down in a tailspin. But come up with strategies where if you begin to see the behavior or they begin to feel the swell of emotion, they've got an out. They've got an out. So like you're sitting at dinner, right? You're sitting at dinner and you've just said the wrong thing. Like, how are you?
Right. Like, hello. Right.
Right. Did you have a good day?
Right.
Right. Okay. So when you start to see the mood, they can take the out or you can take the out. It's like when they were toddlers, and you come up ahead of time with strategies. Okay, if you feel the mood coming on, what makes you feel better? It makes me feel better to go put my head in my pillow and scream. Great. When we're home and you feel that mood coming on, excuse yourself, take 15 seconds, go put your head in your pillow, scream, but then come back, right? Pull yourself together, let yourself come from an 11 down to a 5 or a 6, and then we'll just carry on, right?
Yeah.
My daughter and I, we had a code word.
Oh, I like that.
Pasta. I don't know why it was pasta, but it was pasta. And pasta came from her, it came from me, and the code word was, this is not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So let's just take a break.
And it could be for me, right?
Correct.
So it could be like, I'm going to have a meltdown.
Correct.
In reaction to this whole situation.
And that's another thing that's important to realize is they are exceptionally talented at identifying our buttons and pushing them as needed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
who triggers you better than your kids?
Correct. So acknowledge it. Have a conversation around it. Let them know that you know their power, right? Because that actually diffuses a little of their power.
Okay. I like that a lot. We talked earlier about how every child's puberty journey is unique and puberty is starting younger, it's lasting longer in many cases. What advice do you have for families whose kids are in various stages of puberty?
Yeah.
Is there stage-specific advice, or is it kind of more general?
No, I mean, there's sort of the pre-puberty stage, and those are kids in preschool and sort of kindergarten, first, second, and these are kids whose parents know what's coming
Yeah.
and fear what's coming, but the kids are blissfully ignorant and they're just kids. And for those families, we just say, start getting into the routine of talking about health and wellness, and that includes social and emotional health and wellness, and just being open with each other. The very best thing is, as the parent or trusted adult, is to not judge other kids, because as soon as you become the person who's super judgy about other kids, then when that switch goes off in their brain at 12 and they're more interested in their peers than you and you're the judgy parent, that's a double whammy in their brain. And that's a harder hill to climb when you're trying to convince them that you're their person, right?
And you teach about, or you recommend teaching about bodies and all of our parts very young.
Very young. I mean, as young as you are comfortable. If there's just no reason with this line. If you're saying swords and pocketbooks, it's time to introduce penis and vulva. Yeah. So I used to keep a list in my office of all the names that people would call their body parts. It was amazing. It was
my
amazing.
goodness.
So that's for young kids. Starting around third grade, you've got a significant number of girls in particular who are starting to see estrogen surges. You see it in moods, and you also see it in breast budding. When you first start seeing signs of estrogen swinging, kids need to understand what's happening with hormones in their body. And there are really fundamental facts that they can learn, and it makes them feel more in control. I'm a big fan of teaching everyone about everyone. I don't know why when we were growing up, it was like, oh, you only need to know about the parts you have.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
No, you should just know about parts.
Right.
And that way you can be empathic, you can be supportive.
Absolutely.
So don't feel like you have to silo information based upon what a kid is born with.
Yeah.
Once a kid is in middle school, no more excuses. Like, these are open conversations on a regular basis, not eye to eye. That won't go well. So in the car, at night when the lights go out, on a walk where you're side by side, through a closed door, right? All those ways.
There were so many questions that my daughter brought to me younger than I thought she would. And it was often because there were boys in class that had mentioned things.
Although, did you feel like there's a clarifying question that I always ask, which is, that's so interesting. Why do you ask? Because sometimes you think they're asking one thing, and it turns out they are not asking the big question that you think they are. They're asking some little corner of the big question that you think they are, right?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's because that all-knowing kid on the bus, in the classroom, is dumping some information that's totally out of context for them. So, like, where did I come from can mean 50 things.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. You talked about this a little bit too, but I'll just ask it a different way. If a parent feels like they've messed up in one conversation or the other, or they've missed an opportunity, or they reacted in a way that was like more awkward than they needed to, or more judgy than they needed to, what do we do?
You take a do-over. I mean, just in life, we should be granting ourselves that grace, right?
Yeah.
So you take a do-over and you announce it. That did not go the way I thought it was going to go. I am going to try it again a different way. And you can take the do-over in the moment, a day later, a month later, a year later. Like, when you clock that it didn't land, just volunteer. I'm going to try it again.
Okay. And then a big broader question, which is, how do we keep this dialogue open and maintain this ease and accessibility for our kids so that they feel like they can come to us?
It's funny. Some people say we should have this appearance of comfort and ease. And that's authentic to some adults.
Yeah.
And it's really inauthentic to others.
Oh, good point.
Right?
Good point.
So I think you have to do you. And if discomfort or anxiety or any of these things that don't exactly track with, I'm easy peasy about this puberty thing.
Yeah.
If that's who you are, totally fine. We don't have to be super chill about something that inside our own heads we're screaming about. Now, on the other hand, I caution you not to catastrophize everything.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If she doesn't find the t-shirt that she wants, everything about today is going to go awfully. And then she is not going to go to the college she wants to go to. And then she is going to not have the career that she's hoping. It's like, what are we doing? Right? It's mental health. And Lisa D'Amour talks a lot about this.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of this type of thinking. Mental health is not about being happy. It's about managing the uncomfortable feelings or the very happy feelings that you have in the moment in a way that's appropriate to the situation.
Yeah.
And that takes some learning. So when we start to see, you're not going to have a smooth road once you figure out the right strategy in with a kid. You're going to have a smooth road until that kid evolves, changes, matures, wants something new, has a different passion, starts to drive, grows, like whatever it is. And then you have to readjust.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be bumps, and the communication's going to be better at times. It's going to be worse at times. Just show up for your kid. Put your phone down, right? Because when they're competing with that device, they know they can't compete. Put your phone down and show up for your kid.
And in all of the various ups and downs and stages and changes, and we're just dynamic people.
We are dynamic people. I'd say I'd land here. They're not really interested in our experience. I mean, sometimes they're interested in a funny story.
Too bad.
Right? I know it is. It's so sad. Sometimes they want a funny story. Sometimes they want a story of resilience. They want to know when we were humiliated and horrified and we came out okay.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, usually they just want to talk. So Eliza Pressman has a wonderful line. I quote her at least once a week. Ask your kid, do you want my advice or do you just want me to listen?
Yeah.
And usually they will say, I just want you to listen.
Yes.
Which takes your experience and your past and all of your puberty trauma out of the conversation.
Yeah.
They get to dump all of their angst or happiness or fear or whatever it is onto you, and then they get to move on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Dr. Cara Natterson, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Dr. Cara Natterson for joining us. Each child's journey through puberty is unique and will come with its own unpredictable twists and turns. So it's best to keep those honest conversations going to reduce confusion, anxiety, and shame. Also, the more aware we are of myths and misinformation, the better we can give our children accurate knowledge about how their bodies will change. For more tools and resources, don't hesitate to visit us at akidsco.com. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your shows. Raising Us is sponsored by Nugget.